Sir, you want to stand and be sworn? Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated.
Good afternoon. Could you please tell us your name? Mark Dubiak. And where do you live, Mark? I live at 63 COD Drive. And where's that at? Portage. How long have you lived here? 2 years. Are you originally from this area? Yes. Where did you go to high school? Portage High School. Did you participate in any sports in high school? I played in track and football. And what year did you graduate? 1978. Since graduating from high school, have you lived anywhere else other than this area? I lived in Nevada in the late 80s for 4 years. And what were you doing for work when you were living out in Las Vegas? I did construction, labor work. Had you done that prior to going out to Las Vegas? Briefly, prior to Las Vegas, briefly. Why is it that you left Las Vegas? I was involved in a construction accident there in 1987. Were you injured in that accident? Yes. What was the nature of your injury? I fractured my pelvis in the ball. Were you out of work for some time? Yes. Over 2 years. And were you working in Las Vegas at the time you left? Did you work in Las Vegas following that accident? Okay, where did you go from Las Vegas? I came back to Indiana. Okay, what were you doing when you got back here as far as work or trying to find work? Initially, I came back here and went to school. I went to college for retraining. Where did you go to school at? Indiana Vocational Technical College in Valparaiso. And what did you study there? I was computer science and CAD drafting. Did you get a degree? Yes. Well, are you presently employed? Yes, I am. Okay, what is your present occupation? I'm a working laborer. I do construction work. You're back doing the same job you had been doing in Las Vegas before the accident? Yes, sir. And do you presently work with any restrictions or limitations? No. And you work continuously as a union laborer since 2000? Since 2000, yes. You belong to a local? I belong to, yes. Okay, what is that? Local 81 in Valparaiso, Indiana. Okay, what, if any, position do you hold within the union? I have a stewardship. I'm a steward. I was appointed by the board. Do you have a family? I do. Okay, tell us about your family. My son is 22 years old. What's his name? Mark. Where is he live? He lives at 1796 Lake 4th Street. In Portage. Are you presently married? Yes. Mark, I'd like you to turn your attention to the day of this accident, April 16, 2011. Do you remember that date? Yes. And just mentioned there was an accident. Where did that occur? In Hobart, Indiana. Okay. You know the street names? Yes. Okay. What were the street names? I was on 8th Street and the intersection at 8th and Washington Street. And about what time of day was it? It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And where were you going at that time? We were on our way to the grocery store, Wiseway grocery store in Hobart. And you said me, who was with me? I had a passenger with me, Carl Kazaki. And where were you coming from? I just picked him up from his apartment, which was just down the road on 8th Street. What vehicle were you driving? I was driving my Nissan 1991 Nissan 2-door B21 pickup truck. It's a small pickup truck. And what was the weather like that day? It was just light rain and a drizzle.
And what were the road conditions like?
Oh, they were wet. They were wet. I mean, they weren't terribly wet, but their drizzle was causing them to get wet, more wet.
Well, you said this accident occurred at 8th Street in Washington. Can you describe that intersection for us?
Well, Washington is a side street that tees at 8th. There's a stop sign on Washington. I have the right-of-way, the thoroughfare. I'm on 8th Street. It's a narrow two-lane street.
You say it's a T intersection. What direction does 8th Street run?
East and west.
And how many lanes of traffic are there on 8th Street for the east and west traffic?
One for each direction.
And what direction does Washington Street?
South and north.
And how many lanes of traffic are there on Washington for the north and south traffic?
2, one each way.
You say Washington Street ends at 8th Street?
Yes, it does.
Is there any traffic control device at this intersection?
There's a stop sign for Washington Street.
What about on 8th Street? Are there any traffic control signals or signs on 8th Street?
Not at Washington, no.
No, I'm talking about this intersection.
No, they're not.
And what street are you on?
I'm on 8th Street.
And what direction are you traveling?
Westbound.
And what do you see as you approach the Washington Street intersection?
I see a white SUV pulling out directly in front of me.
Okay. Now specifically, where is that white SUV when you first see it? What lane is it?
It's in my lane, blocking my direction. It's coming off of Washington directly in front of me at like a 45-degree angle.
And how fast are you traveling at that point in time when you first see that SUV?
25 to 30 miles an hour, I'd say.
Is the SUV moving when you first see it?
Yes.
And how far away from that SUV are you when you first see it?
I estimate I was like 3 car lengths from it.
Now, at that point in time, you just see the white SUV and you're laying up ahead of you. What, if anything, do you notice about any eastbound traffic coming towards you?
There is one car that is coming my direction, traveling east. I'm traveling west. But it's ahead of me, not right in front of me, but it's coming my way. And her vehicle's parked there, or pulling right in front of me as well, at the same time.
So what do you do at that point in time when you're about 3 car lengths away from the white SUV, you see it in your lane? What do you do at that point in time?
I grab my steering wheel and I slam on the brakes, and Carl, my passenger with me, says, "Oh my God." And I'm gripping the steering wheel at that point.
Okay. And how does your car proceed from that point?
Well, the car, as I applied the brakes, the cars, and we both shifted backwards like this, and the car shifted this way, so it caused a little bit of a fishtail, and my hands were on the steering wheel, and I adjusted for the fishtail. And then as the brake was on, we were going forward, and I had no choice but to cut my wheel as hard as I could to get off of the road, to try to miss her, but she had thrown her. Okay.
So you apply the brakes.
Yes.
How do you apply the brakes?
As hard as I can with both feet.
With both feet on the brake pedal?
Yes.
And do you just continue straight upon hitting the brakes, or do you steer? What do you do as far as the movement of the vehicle?
I steer and it slides. I'm sliding.
In what direction?
Forward.
Okay, to the left, to the right. What direction are you going once your car starts after you hit the brakes?
I was keeping the front of it straight, and the rear end was swerving to the left, like this.
Well, what direction does your vehicle eventually go as it's moving forward towards the Washington Street intersection?
It goes due north. I cut the wheel to the right and do a 90 degree to try to avoid hitting her
Are you
broadside.
talking right or left? Left or right?
Right.
And now that you're headed to the right with your brakes on, is there anything ahead of you?
Her vehicle is then backing up off of 8th Street right in front of me once again.
So do you see the SUV as you're in that slide?
Yes.
And what do you notice, if anything, about its movement?
The last thing I noticed was her arm on the steering wheel, and she's looking backwards like this. And I had to pinpoint where I was going to impact her vehicle, and my only choice was to just slightly let up on the wheel and hit her front tire, which was angled right at me at that point, because she was backing up, and I was then in this direction. So I steered it right to her tire rather than hit her door or her side or her fender. I pointed it right at the tire in the last split second.
Do you see the SUV moving as you're in your slide?
Yes.
Where is it? What can you describe as movement?
It's in reverse.
Moving backwards?
Backwards.
And what do you do right before the collision, if anything?
Brace for the impact, and I took my right hand and I tried to hold my passenger like this from lunging forward before we smashed into the
Where
tire.
was your left hand?
Straight to the wheel.
And where were your feet?
On the brake pedal,
And the collision occurs?
the collision occurred.
Can you describe the impact in general terms?
It was pretty hard, and it was abrupt, and both vehicles came to a stop.
Where was the impact on your vehicle?
On my front left fender, bumper, hood, and the side, fender that goes to my tire. The front left part of my truck.
And now after the collision has occurred, what do you do next?
Well, Carl, if he's all right, I get out of my truck and I go ask the driver if she was all right.
What driver are you talking about?
The driver of the SUV.
Can you identify the driver of the SUV?
Yes.
And you should use cargo?
Yes.
Who is the driver? Can you point to her or identify her?
She's right there and at the table.
Pointing at the defendant?
Yes.
So you had some conversation with the driver of the SUV?
I had asked her if she was all right, and then I asked her if she was going to call the police. She had her phone in her hand. She said she would.
Did you recall anything else about your conversation with her at that time?
Well, no, then I just looked around the area there and I inspected the scene, as it were, and my truck was still up on 8th Street. The back of my truck was on 8th Street, and I said, I think I better move this because traffic is getting pretty severe here. I don't want to get hit on the rear, because we were totally blocking Washington Street at that point, her vehicle and mine.
Did you see the damage to your vehicle when you got out of your car or your truck?
Yes.
Where was the damage?
Damage was in the front of my vehicle, the front driver's side, left, bumper, hood, fender.
Was the car drivable in that condition?
Well, not really, because the fender was pushed back up against my tire, driver's side tire.
Did you do anything to the vehicle to make it drivable?
I had to push it with my foot and pull on it to get it off of my tire from cutting my tire. And then,
What, if anything, did you do after the accident? Jumping ahead, I guess, a little bit. What did you do as far as getting your car, trying to get your car repaired?
I took it to have an estimate for its damages.
Okay. Where was that at?
There was a Color Craft Automotive in 130 in Hobart, Indiana.
Okay. Was there an estimate written?
Yes.
May I approach your honor?
Yes.
as Exhibit 1?
Is it in the book?
No, it's not. It's
All
a
right.
separate one. Plans 1. Mark, would you take a look at what we have marked as Plans Exhibit number 1?
Yes,
Have you seen that before?
yes.
And what is that?
This is an estimate for the damages to my vehicle from that accident.
And who wrote that estimate?
They're called color craft auto body.
Your Honor, I move to admit Plans Exhibit 1.
Any objection?
No objection.
One is admitted.
And what was the amount of that estimate, Mr. Zuniac?
$1,990.07.
Now, back to the accident, you told us you got out of your vehicle, you talked to the driver of the SUV. How were you feeling at that point? Just been in the accident, you're out of your car, or you're out of your truck. How were you feeling at that point?
I was very shook up.
Were you feeling any pain at that time?
No, not at that moment. I didn't feel pain.
Did anyone else come to the scene?
Police came.
You remember talking to the police?
Yes, I gave them my report and my license, my insurance card.
Did you talk to the police about how the accident happened?
Yes, I did.
Anything different than what you told us here today? Did you hear the driver of the SUV talking to the police while there?
I saw that she was talking to the second officer that came on the scene. She was talking to him, yes.
You say there were 2 officers at the scene. Do you know them by name?
Well, I didn't, prior to this accident, I had never seen either one of them, but the officer, I believe I gave the report to, I think it was Jimenez or Jimenez. I think that was the officer who took the report, my report.
Do you know the name of the other officer at the scene?
No, it was a white-haired officer. I don't know his name. He was in his car.
Where do you go? Well, is there anything else that happens at the scene now that you've talked to the police and talked about what you did to your vehicle to make it drivable? Anything else happening at the scene?
Okay, I mean, I don't know if it's relevant.
Well,
I say
what did you see anything else? What did you see beyond that?
I heard something else beyond that.
Okay, what did you hear?
The driver of the white
Objection,
SUV.
Your Honor. The question calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
The driver of the white SUV was talking to the second officer that I described as the white hair, not Officer Jimenez.
And what was it?
And I heard that officer say to her, "Lady, I'm not about to lie for you. I did not see this accident." And she crossed her arms, turned her back, and walked away. That's what I heard.
Anything else you recall happening at the scene?
No, afterwards, filing a report and waiting, and I picked up the pieces of my bumper and plastic grill that was on the ground. I picked it up, put it in the back bed of my truck, and pretty much after his report was done, he said we could leave, so I did.
Okay. And how do you leave the scene?
I go back on
In your truck?
Yeah, my truck.
Okay, where do you go?
I went back down 8th Street where Carl lived on 8th Street to his apartment, see if he was home.
So Carl wasn't with you when you left the scene, if you recall?
No, he said he had to go back home. He had kids to take care of. He had 2 boys there, so he
Will eventually make it back home?
Yeah, it's not that far. He walked home.
How are you doing when you get home?
I'm just trying to calm myself down.
You able to sleep that night?
I slept.
Well, how are you doing the next day or 2 following the accident?
Well, I thought that I should, I wasn't feeling so good.
What were you feeling?
My neck and back and muscles were pretty tight, and I was feeling some pain.
Okay, so what do you do at that time?
I called Ford Chiropractic, Dr. LakeCo, and made an appointment to see him.
Do you recall approximately when that was that you first got in to see Dr. Redfield following this accident?
I'm not sure if it was 2 days or 5 days later. So somewhere in that area.
Had you been to a court chiropractic prior to going there a few days after this motor vehicle accident?
Yes, I've been to Dr. Redfield before.
Okay, when was the last time, as you recall, that you had been seen by Dr. Redfield?
I think it had been like maybe 4 years before that.
Okay, you recall what year we're talking about?
2007 would be.
And what had you gone there for treatment of back in 2007?
For spinal adjustments and things. He helped me out from the time I came back from Nevada. He helped.
What was specifically your complaint? What part of your body was he looking at or treating?
I had tension in my back, neck, and back pain, and my hip wasn't feeling very well.
Did you receive treatment back in 2007?
2007?
2007.
Yeah.
Talk about the last time you had been to a court.
I thought, okay, before that.
Yeah, we're talking about when you were there in 2007.
I had probably had alignment done or adjustment done in 2007.
Do you recall how much treatment you received? Were you there for a couple of months, a couple of days?
No, I don't think at all a couple of months. It might have been a few weeks.
And how were you doing after that treatment?
Fine, it always makes me feel, I feel better after going to a chiropractor.
So you didn't see Dr. Redfield at a court from that time until after your motor vehicle accident?
Right, yes.
Now, how are you doing when you go to a court at 2 or 3, 4 days after the car crash?
I'm feeling pain in my back and my neck and my hip. And I let him know that. And I fill out a card with that information on it.
Did you get any treatment at a court at that time?
Yes, his initial examines your spine, your back with electrodes and whatnot on that day.
Well, how long did you treat there, if at all, following that initial visit there?
I think it was about 2 months. 3 days a week.
And how are you doing at the end of that 2 months?
I felt better, much better.
Treatment was working?
Yes.
And so you said that was the end of the treatment at that point?
Yeah, after 2 months it felt like that was all we could do. And I felt like I had gotten better. So we were fine, both of them.
So how do you do after that? I mean, we're now about 2 months or so after the accident. You're feeling pretty good after the chiropractic care. What, if anything, changes about your condition after that point?
Well, then it seemed like I had kind of a flare-up after that, I don't know if it was 2 weeks after that, and I thought I should go see my physician, my family physician.
Okay, you talk about this flare. How would you compare that to the condition you were experiencing within those first couple days after the motor vehicle accident?
Well, they were similar. It was neck and back and hip again, which tightened up, and muscles and things just didn't feel that good.
So, what does, do you receive any further medical treatment?
From Dr. Chhabra? Yes.
And when is it that you see Dr. Chhabra?
Well, it was 2011, but what date are you asking?
Well, how soon after you finish seeing the chiropractor do you follow up with Dr. Chhabra?
Oh, I think it was within a week, 2 weeks, maybe a week.
Now, you already described Dr. Chhabra as your family doctor. Had you seen him before your visit to him, which was following this accident?
Oh, yes, he's been my family physician for 20 years or more.
Do you recall the last time you had seen Dr. Chhabra before seeing him a couple months after your motor vehicle accident?
I think it had been years, here again, I think it had been years that I had actually been to him for anything.
Okay, well, when you say years, can you give me some idea as to when you had last seen Dr. Chhabra prior to 2011?
I think it was more than 3 years, and it might have been 4 years. So, again, I think you're looking at 2007.
And you recall, let's say Dr. Chabot was your family doctor, you seen him for a number of illnesses or conditions?
At different times when yes.
And you said the last time you think you saw him was in 2007. You recall what problem, if anything, you had at that point?
No, but I've seen him for most things you go to a family physician for, bronchitis or something like that, of that sort. Colds, flu, things. I mean,
Now, had you been to see Dr. Chabot then in 2008 with any back or neck complaints? How about in 2009?
I'd say no.
2010?
I'd say no.
Were you working through that entire time?
Yes. Yes.
And you were doing your job as a union laborer?
Yes.
Now, when you see Dr. Chabot, what does he do for you, if anything?
Well, he ordered several tests for me to have done, and I followed his orders.
Can you recall what was done?
There were x-rays taken and MRIs taken, and different specialists that he suggested I see for my neck.
What, if anything, does he specifically prescribe for you in the way of treatment?
Pain medicine, and I think it was like naproxen and possibly Flexeril or muscle.
Does that help at all?
What help?
Okay. Can you explain to us what is going on as far as your medication? Is that every day, every morning? What do you recall about the medication regimen?
I think it was 500 milligrams twice a day. It wasn't much beyond that.
And you said something about a referral as well from Dr. Chabot?
Yeah, to an orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Nanatovich.
Did you in fact follow up with that doctor?
Yes, I did.
What did that doctor do for you?
He examined MRIs and x-rays, things like that.
And what, if anything, does he do for you?
Well, he didn't actually perform any type of thing on me. He examined my MRIs and x-rays and explained to me that there were possible cartilage damage to my neck.
Did you ever start on physical therapy?
I think I had scheduled a session or two of physical therapy was given to me, and I don't know if that was from Dr. Chabot or from Dr. Nanatovich, like one or two visits possibly.
And what was done at those physical therapy sessions?
Just like muscle strengthening to ease the muscles, actually, keep them from pulling one way or the other.
Was that something you were able to continue doing at home?
Oh yeah, it was at home. Pamphlets that you could do at home, sure.
How long did you continue to treat with Dr. Chabot?
I'm not exactly sure what the length of time was that I treated with Dr. Chabot on this accident. It ended. Our treatment, I think, was December of 2011, maybe, when I saw him last. It was.
What were you doing at that point in time?
Well, he had said, I was doing okay. I was doing all right.
Well, were you still continuing to experience some symptoms as you had been following this accident?
Well, I kind of live with pain because I have an 8.5% permanent partial disability. So, the pain never actually goes away. But did I feel better from seeing him and his treatment? And yes.
Well, how are you doing today, Mark?
Pretty good.
Okay, what do you mean by pretty good?
You mean physically?
Yeah.
Doing fine.
No more symptoms associated with the motor vehicle accident?
No.
I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
At this time, I would like to publish my defendant's exhibits to the jurors.
Yes. Michael, come over and pass these books out to the jurors. Yeah.
Whoever sits there.
Okay. Is there one for the jury? That's for the jury. Just put it with the exhibits. Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Devitt, can you hear me well? Is this okay? Can all the jurors hear me well? Mr. Devitt, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, okay? Do your best in answering them. Would you agree that it's important for a person operating a motor vehicle to be able to see clearly? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you agree that it's important for a person operating a motor vehicle to be able to see the distance of, say, other vehicles, of buildings, of children, pedestrians? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Devitt, you wear glasses, is that right?
I have glasses. I don't wear them on a regular basis, no.
Okay. You do have glasses, though, right? That you wear at points in your life.
Yeah, they're in a drawer at home, yes.
Okay. You specifically wear these glasses to see distance, don't you?
Yes.
And the day of the accident, you were not wearing those glasses.
No, I was not wearing glasses the day of the accident.
Okay. Now, Mr. Devitt, right before the accident, you were traveling westbound on 8th Street, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You had a passenger with you, Mr. Carl Kazicki, when the accident occurred. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you've known each other for about 10 years. Would that be correct?
About
A little bit, maybe over?
a little bit maybe less.
Okay, sure. Now, besides being co-workers, the two of you are also friends. Would that be correct?
That's fair to say.
Okay. You often spend time with him.
No.
You don't often spend time with him.
No.
How often do you see Mr. Kazicki?
Well, we might be on the same job together. Given us two boys' Christmas presents before. I mean, we're friends, but do we spend time together? Not very often.
Okay. Now, it was a cloudy day, the day of the accident, is that right?
That's right.
There was drizzle, meaning a little bit of rain, is that right?
Yes.
You had your windshield wipers on.
Yes.
The roads were wet, is that correct?
They were wet.
Now, are there any hills on 8th Street that you know of, Mr. Devitt?
There's a slight hill after the school. The school on 8th Street, there's an upward, it's not a hill, I mean, it's an upward slope of the road, yes.
Now, is this upward slope something that you passed prior to the accident? So
Yeah.
you were coming from the slope before the accident?
Yes, the slope, I would say, is quite some distance behind where the intersection and where the accident is, yes.
So you had already gone through this slope when the accident occurred?
Yes.
How far is the slope, would you say, if you can approximate from the intersection?
I really don't know.
Okay, sure, fair enough. Now, you were about 3 to 5 car lengths away when you first saw Sharon's vehicle, is that right?
Yes.
And you were traveling at approximately 25 miles per hour, is that right?
Yes.
You were traveling 25 to 30 miles per hour on wet roads, is that right?
Yes.
And it is your testimony today that, under oath, of course, that when you first saw Sharon, she was 85 to 90% in your lane of traffic.
Yes.
And you also stated, well, she was 80% perpendicular to your vehicle. Is that right?
She was at like a 45 degree angle, turning right in front of me.
So according to you, she was going to make a right turn in front of you.
She did.
Okay. When the accident, when you first saw Sharon, what did you see in her vehicle? Was her vehicle completely sideways in your view, or how was her vehicle?
I could see the side of her vehicle. I could not really see her. I could see the side of her vehicle because it was blocking my path and coming into my lane in front of me.
Now, after you saw Sharon, you slammed on your brakes, is that right?
That is right.
You fishtailed slightly.
Slightly.
You also skidded.
Yes.
You left skid marks from your truck on the pavement.
Yes.
The skid marks were located on Washington Street, is that right?
Right.
You also, when you were skidding, you veered to the right. Is that right?
Yes.
That was your testimony earlier? Now, when the collision occurred, the front of your vehicle was on Washington Street, is that right?
That is right.
So when you skidded, the front end of your truck left 8th Street and went on to Washington Street.
Yeah, I drove it from 8th to 1. I steered it that way on purpose.
Okay? Now,
It wasn't the skidding that caused it to go that way. I had to steer it that way in a 90-degree angle to the right to turn over.
okay. Now, how much time elapsed from the time that you first saw her to when you began skidding?
I'm thinking it's like 5 seconds, 8 seconds, very tops. It might have even been less than that.
So
Seconds.
So you see her, then you slam on your brakes, and then you start skidding. Is that right?
I see her, I slam on the brakes, and we're slowing down. We both lunge backwards. That's what caused the back end of the truck to sort of fishtail. It didn't fishtail like this. It didn't fishtail back and forth. It just, the rear end slid to the right at that point, off of it. I adjusted for it. Then it was a matter of, do I continue directly into her? Well, I could not go to the left because there was an oncoming car. So I cut the wheels at the last second as far as I could to the right.
Okay.
And to turn on the Washington to miss her vehicle. And she put in reverse and backed up in front of me once again.
Now let me ask you something else, and this question might be a little bit confusing. I will rephrase it if you need me to. How much time elapsed from the point where you slammed on your brakes till the point that you hit her?
Less than 5 seconds.
Less than 5 seconds. So in 5 seconds, you had time to veer to the left, or to the right, I mean. Earlier you stated you veered to the right. You also had time to adjust, you said. You also had time to make sure you hit a specific part in her vehicle. Is that right?
Yes, it was all reaction.
And at the same time, she also had the time to realize an accident's about to happen, and according to your testimony, she backed up. This all happened in 5 seconds.
Yes.
Now, after you saw Sharon, obviously you already stated you slammed on your brakes. Right?
Yes.
Now, after the collision occurred, you got out of the car to see the damages in the vehicles. Is that right?
I got out of the car and I walked over to her and asked her if she was all right. I didn't look at the damage to the vehicles.
Okay. Now, before the police arrived, you moved your vehicle to the north side of 8th Street. Is that right?
I spoke to her and said to her, I think it's best that I move my vehicle. She told me, well, I don't think we're supposed to move our cars. I said, but my rear end is sticking onto 8th Street and it could get hit by this traffic. It's now coming down the road, it's running out, it's dark. I didn't want my truck to get hit again. I told her, I think it's best I have to move it over to the side. So I just moved it slightly over on the side of 8th Street. And then she moved her vehicle as well. Right after I did.
So when the police arrived, your car was no longer in the position it was when the accident occurred.
Right.
Okay. Now, Mr. Debian, we're going to go over some of your medical history. Now, Dr. Shabra has been your doctor for about 20 years, I think you said earlier.
More than that.
More than that, okay, sure. Now, earlier, you testified that after this accident, you had some neck pain. Is that right?
After the accident?
Yes.
Yes.
You also said that after the accident, you had some back pain. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you also stated that you had some hip pain. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Deviat, before this accident, have you sought treatment with Dr. Shabra for your back?
I probably didn't see him before for back pain, yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
I'm giving you the deposition. Do you remember that your deposition was taken back in January 29th of 2013?
Yes.
And at that deposition, you raised your right hand and said that you would tell the truth. Is that right?
Yes.
It's the same oath that you took today.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you remember when asked, and you can look to make sure that I'm reading this correctly, you can turn to page 18. Line 12 specifically. When you were asked, so you've never seen Dr. Shabra or anyone else for back pain here prior to this accident, you replied, I don't think so. Is that right?
Right. On page 18.
Page 18, line 12.
What was the question? Line 12?
Line 12. So you've never seen Dr. Shabra or anyone else for back pain here prior to this accident. Is that right? Is that the question?
That's yes.
And the answer is, I don't think so.
That was my answer then.
And what has changed since then? Now, you remember you've had issues with your back prior now? And back in 2013, you didn't remember?
Well, at this stage of this question, you were asking me different questions about different times, back and forth. I mean, it wasn't, you were asking me about 87 prior to this question here that you asked me, so to understand that I never had back pain here before, just before that, the question was about the accident, so I answered, I don't think so.
Well, the question was very clear, Mr. Deviat. So you've never seen Dr. Shabra or anyone else for back pain prior to this accident? And your answer was, I don't think so. Is that right?
My answer was, I don't think so. That is right.
And now you say that you remember you had you sought treatment with Dr. Shabra prior to this accident. You now know that you have. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any reason to dispute the medical records that I have here from Dr. Shabra, which indicate that you treated for back pain prior to this accident, specifically on December 30th, 1999? And if you want to take a look at the medical record, that's on page 1, tab A. Tab A, page 1.
Do we have a copy of this?
Yeah.
Right there.
Do you remember that medical record?
Well, this would be after I returned back home from the doctor.
Right. And you specifically went there, and a note in there says that you complained of back pain. Would that be right?
Yes, but this would be in relation to yes. Well, I don't see where it's written here, back pain, but okay.
Take a look under, we definitely want to make sure that it says what I'm telling you to say. Absolutely. We don't want to say something that it doesn't say. So if you want to look under review of systems, right in the middle, you go all the way down, musculoskeletal, it says back pain. Is that right? Musculoskeletal. I apologize for the mispronunciation.
Yes, it says back in the drawings.
Now, do you have any reason to dispute that on January 18, 2000, you presented yourself to St. Mary Medical Center on page 3? You can turn to page 3.
Same tab.
Same tab, yes. The pages are at the bottom. I apologize for that. On January 18, 2000, you presented yourself to St. Mary Medical Center. and the clinical impression was lumbar radiculopathy. Is that right? Now, again, on February 17, 2003, on page 5, you went to go see Dr. Chabra, and at that time you complained of back pain. Is that right?
Yes, but that's not the only thing that's on this page, by any means.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, as a matter of fact, your chief complaint that day was a general checkup. And at this general checkup, the assessment was back pain. Is that right?
That's what I read here under musculoskeletal, yes.
Perfect. Now, in fact, if you want to turn to page 6, on December 1st, 2003, you presented yourself to St. Mary Medical Center Emergency Department, and your main complaint at that time was back pain on and off for 2 weeks, denies any trauma. Is that right on page 6? Would that
I never had kidney stones.
Okay, but it says back pain there. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, on February 4th, 2004, on page 9, Dr. Ludas diagnosed you as having chronic low back pain. Is that right?
Dr. who?
Dr. Ludas. At the top it says Dr. A. Ludas. And then under assessment it says chronic low back pain. Is that right?
Well, that's what it says here, yes, on page 9.
It also says probably OA. Do you see that under assessment?
Yes.
Now, Dr. Chabra in his deposition will tell us what OA is, but just so that the record reflects that under assessment it says probably OA. Now, as to your elbow, Mr. Debiak, before this April 16, 2011 accident, have you ever sought treatment for pain in your elbow?
Yes.
Okay. Now, then on June 21st, 2004, you were diagnosed as having chronic tennis elbow. Is that right? On page 10?
Yes.
Okay. Now, moving on to your neck. You also said that after this accident, you suffered neck pain. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, before this April 16, 2011 accident, have you ever sought treatment for neck pain?
From a chiropractor, and possibly I had muscle and neck pain from work.
Okay. Now, on April 20th of 2005, you saw Dr. Chabra and he diagnosed you with cervical radiculopathy. That's on page 11. Would that be correct?
I don't read where it says that. I can't really read it right. On page 11, cervical radiculopathy.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry for the medical terms. If you look under assessment, it says C, radiculopathy. Would that be right? Is that what that says?
I can't tell. This copy is not that great.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Page 11.
Page 11. Now, if you can't read it, that's quite okay. We'll have a chance to talk to the doctor about this. Now, on April 26, 2005, on page 13, you had an MRI of your cervical spine, meaning of your neck. Is that right?
Yes.
And on page 13, the MRI indicated arthritic spurs in your cervical spine. Is that what that says? Right in the middle, there are arthritic spurs.
The paragraph?
On page 13, yes. It says there are arthritic spurs at C5, C6, and C7, C6.
Yes, I see that.
Okay. Now, before this accident earlier, you testified that you have sought physical therapy. Is that right?
Yes.
Specifically for your neck and your elbow. Would that be correct?
No. Physical therapy for my neck and my elbow?
Yes. Would you agree that before this accident, you've actually sought physical therapy for your neck and your elbow? Do you disagree with that?
Well, I don't really remember if I had ever had that therapy specifically for my elbow or for my neck.
Not a problem. Do you have any reason to dispute the medical record that I have here on page 19A? I'll give you some time because the pages are a little bit out of order. 19A. Let me know when you're on 19A. Do you see 19A, Mr. W?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Do you see right in the middle where it says patient is presenting today with a toothache pain, which he locates through bilateral cervical region. Then it says pain is described as constant and rated a 6 out of 10. It increases with physical activity. Then it says, at this time, patient is also experiencing radiculopathy through bilateral elbows and interfingers with increased physical work. Is that what the record says?
Yes, that's what this says.
And do you have any reason to dispute that this is your medical record?
From 05? No, I don't dispute that.
Okay, so before this accident, you've actually sought some type of physical therapy for your elbow. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Now, this record also indicates that you had pain in your neck that was on and off for the last couple of years. Same page, right at the top. It says the patient reports he has been experiencing pain through the cervical region on and off for the last couple of years. Is that right?
Okay.
So based on this record, you've had issues with your neck region that have been on and off for the last couple of years. Would that be correct?
That would be correct.
Okay. Now on page 19, if you can just go back one page, you attended physical therapy session at Health Motivation Center. Is that what that is?
Yes.
You specifically attended 7 visits, 7 sessions. It says total number of visits, and then it has a 7 right next to it. Would that be right?
That would be right.
And at that time, in July 19th of 2007, you were working as a union laborer. Is that right?
That's right.
You're also working as a union laborer today.
That's right.
Okay. And your job is obviously very physical, as you stated earlier.
I do have a physical job, yes.
Okay. Do you lift heavy things and things like that?
It depends, but there are times when, yes, there's heavy lifting.
Sure. Now, besides Health Motivation Center that we have in front of us, have you undergone any other type of physical therapy for your neck, for your back, or for your elbow before this accident, of course?
From this accident?
Well, no, let me rephrase the question. We know that you've gone through physical therapy at Health Motivation Center. We just went through those records. Besides Health Motivation Center, before this accident, have you sought any other physical therapy?
Not that I remember or can recall.
Okay. Now, do you have any reason to dispute the medical records that I have here from a court chiropractors on page 21? Now, these medical records indicate that you were undergoing physical therapy for acute, constant, low back, chronic pain, and neck pain. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And at that time, on November 5th, 2007, you were also having pain in your back, rated a 7 out of 10 on page 21. Is that what you rated the pain at that time?
Well, I would say yes. I suppose I did.
Okay, see, under subjective, it says the patient entered the office with the following symptoms: acute, constant, and 7 out of 10 in intensity, 10 being the worst pain in the low back. Would that be right?
Yeah, that would be right.
It also says chronic, occasional, and 2 of 10 in intensity, stiffness in neck. Is that what that says?
That is what that says.
And if you look under plan, at the kind of at the bottom, it says that the plan indicated 3 times a week for 4 weeks, at which time they would reassess your progress. Is that right?
Yes.
So based on what we've reviewed so far, and we've reviewed a lot of your medical records, before this accident, you had chronic back pain. Would that be right?
Yes, I've had back pain.
Okay, you've also had neck pain, specifically arthritic spurs in your neck. Would that be right?
Yes.
Before this accident, you were also diagnosed with chronic tennis elbow. Do you remember that record that we reviewed?
Yes.
Now, after this accident, you sought treatment at a Court Chiropractic. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, that would be on page 26 if you want to turn to that page. Now, after the completion of your therapy, if you want to turn to page 38, I apologize for that. And let me know when you're on 38, please. Are you on 38?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. After the completion of your therapy on June 8, 2011, on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being no pain and 10 being a lot of pain or the worst pain, you rated that pain to your neck as a 0. Is that right?
That is right.
Okay, so 2 months after the accident, you were having no neck pain. Is that right? Is that what the record indicates?
Yes, it does.
Now, you also rated your pain the pain to your lower back as a 0. Same page, is that right?
Neck is 0, that's 0, back is 0, that's what it says here, yes.
So 2 months after the accident, you were pain-free in your neck and in your back, is that right?
That's what this report says, yes.
Okay, do you have any reason to dispute that this report is wrong?
No.
Okay. Now, on June 8, 2011, that same record that you're looking at here, it states the patient has been discharged from care as he has reached maximum medical improvement and subsequent visits for this specific condition are no longer needed. Is that what that says?
And then it goes on, yes, it says what you just read.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I'll go on. It says, if the left elbow pain persisted, the patient is instructed to seek an orthopedic consultation. For purposes of being complete, that's what the paragraph says. Now, then you waited until July 12, 2011, a little bit over a month to see Dr. Shabra. Is that right? On page 23?
Page 23?
Yes, 23.
Okay.
You saw Dr. Shabra for the first time for this accident on July 12, 2011. Would that be correct?
That would be correct.
And after the accident, you had an x-ray of your lumbar, your thoracic, spine, all which were normal, on page 31. Is that what the x-rays say?
Well, anatomic says that the thoracic spinal line is anatomic.
Okay, sure.
Gravity.
And we'll have Dr. Shabra define what that is. Now, on page 32, the x-rays of your neck showed multi-level degenerative spondylosis. particularly within the upper and mid-cervical spine. Is that what that record says on page 32?
Yes.
Okay. It also says, as well as multi-level bilateral neuroflaminal stenosis. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, after this accident, you also had some MRIs. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to turn to tab B, the second page of that record. Right in the middle under radiologic evaluation, it says, the MRI noted that there was MRI of the cervical spine demonstrates the patient has some mild degenerative changes noted with no neural element compression or stenosis noted. Is that what the MRI of the cervical spine shows?
I can see what you just read. Yes, that's what it means.
Now, underneath that, it says the MRI of the lumbar spine demonstrates the patient has well-maintained disc height with no step-up deformities noted, no neural element compression noted, and no herniated bulging discs noted. Is that what that says?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on December 2nd, 2011, you also had an MRI of your left elbow. That's tab A, page 46A. The MRI indicates negative MRI evaluation of the left elbow. Is that right? Is that what it says?
Under what? I don't see quite where I'm reading it from.
Oh, absolutely. Page 46A under impression. Do you see that under impression? It says negative MRI evaluation of the left elbow.
46A, yes, I do.
Okay. Now, Mr. Deviak, earlier you said you work as a laborer. The job is very physical, right?
Yes.
This job entails you moving things around, cleaning areas of work. Would that be right?
Yes.
Okay. At times, you also have to carry heavy objects. It just depends what job you're on.
Yes.
While you were attending physical therapy after this accident, you still went to work, right?
Oh, yes.
You didn't have any type of light work or restrictions as to what you can do.
I didn't ask for any light duty.
Were you told by a doctor that you needed light duty?
No, I didn't ask for any light duty. Tight.
Okay, and a doctor didn't tell you that you needed that?
No.
Okay. Now, your normal physical labor brings about aches and pains. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, during your treatment with Health Motivation Center back on June 19, 2005, on page 19A, you told them that you worked as a union leader. Is that right?
Yes.
On page 19D, on page 19D, this record indicates that one of your long-term goals was to be able to complete your work duties in a tolerable range. Is that correct?
That's what it means.
Okay. Do you remember that that was what you talked about?
No, I don't remember this, no.
Okay. Do you have any reason to dispute that this
No,
is...
I don't have any reason to dispute it.
Okay. Now, after the April 16th accident, you only missed half a day of work. Is that right?
To attend my MRI and X-ray. That was right.
That's right. It wasn't because you felt pain and you couldn't go
No.
home. It was because you had to go get an
To
X-ray.
follow the doctor's orders.
Sure.
An X-ray or an MRI. whichever it was.
Now, as you sit here today, you're able to do all of the activities that you were able to do prior to this accident. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, you haven't seen Dr. Shabra since December 2011, is that right?
I haven't seen him, right, I think that's right, December 2011, yes, I think that's correct. I might have seen him for something unrelated to this accident.
Sure.
So,
Just a checkup.
in the last 3 years, yeah, nothing else related to this accident I've seen Dr. Shaw before that I recall.
So after December 2011, you have seen Dr. Shabra?
In relation to the accident, no.
Just in general.
I think I might have been there once. I might have been there for something totally different. Nothing to do with this accident.
Is Dr. Shabra your only doctor?
Yeah, he's my family physician.
Okay. But you could go see him if you want to. Nothing's keeping you from seeing him yet. Would that be right?
That would be right.
Okay. Now, going back to the accident, the very first time that you saw Sharon, you slammed on your brakes.
I saw her vehicle slammed on my brakes.
Okay. And the pavement was wet and you skidded. Is that right?
Yes.
Nothing more.
Redirect?
I have no question.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
No, thank you. Yeah, well, that's-
I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, now's your opportunity to, if you have any questions you'd like to ask the witness, you may write them down, place them in the basket, and we will consider them whether they should be asked or not.